It's time for Let It Rip. I'm Marielle Liu.
And I'm Charlie Langton. All right, let's get right into it now on this topic. First guest here, a Democrat that has served 2 decades as a Clinton Township treasurer before taking the leap to the state capitol. He's also the lawmaker behind the 5-year-olds going to kindergarten, the topic we're talking about today. Welcome, State Representative Bill Sowerby. Next, she has more than 20 years experience teaching elementary students. She's the executive vice president for the Teachers Union in Detroit. She likes 5-year-olds going to school as well. Lakia Wilson is back again. Thank you so much. Also, he considers himself an advocate and an ally for students and teachers and families. Assistant Superintendent of Academics for the Novi School District, Dr. R.J. Weber, joins us. He's got some reservations about this proposal, as does the new state senator from White Lake. He won his seat by championing conservative causes. A good friend of the show, Jim Runestad, back again. Thank you so much. Let's go to you, though, Representative Bill Sowerby. This is your proposal mandating 5-year-olds go to school. That's not the case. Now, why are you so certain that 5-year-olds are even ready to go to school?
So the issue is, in 2016, before I came to Lansing, the state legislature passed a bill, and the governor signed that bill into law, which requires a 3rd grade reading requirement. Now, that 3rd grade reading requirement means tests, and if you don't pass that 3rd grade reading requirement, you are held back. Thus, we have the problem, and that program starts at the beginning of next school season in September. So with mandatory kindergarten, you end up addressing what is the real problem. That is the National Assessment for Educational Progress, known as the nation's report card, lists Michigan as dead last in the Midwest on all educational categories. Also, we are 35th in the country regarding the 4th grade reading requirements. And the rest of the story is that from the 2017-18 school year, 4 consecutive years, we continue to fall behind in progress with children meeting reading requirements. So you bring in that mandatory kindergarten bill. 5-year-olds would have to go to school if they are, their birthday is September 1st or earlier.
Okay, so the idea is putting kids in school earlier will prepare them better, right, to pass this 3rd grade reading test. But you still will have parents who say it should be my choice.
And so we do have options for parents. So parents can choose homeschooling. However, if you look at the data, you will find most children are in school already at 5 years old. Parents are looking for some sort of child care. It should not be income-based. School should be mandatory at 5 years old. We're not going to say what our children cannot do, because we know at 5 years old, we know what they can. And we need to provide those literacy-rich environments as soon as possible.
So what's the other side of this argument?
So the side of this argument that I think we really need to go at is that any time we try to engage in a simple solution to a complex issue, we should all worry. An issue that we have is we have 4-year-olds who are actually in kindergarten right now because parents can sign a waiver. That's way too young. Not every 5-year-old is the same. 5-year-olds develop differently. All of us develop differently. What we need to do really is to focus on great early childhood education. The state needs to step up and start funding Young 5 education. Much of the reason why parents put their students in kindergarten before they're ready is because the parents do not have money to send their students to preschool. That's inexcusable. The stamina that it takes for a kindergartner to go through full-day kindergarten, the rigor of the curriculum, the social emotional development are all questions we need to ask. So, Bill, I love what you're doing and the direction you're going with it, but I would say that I would question people like, quite frankly, Senator Runestad, and say, so what are we doing to invest in the kids in our state, rather than saying, what can we do with these simple legislative solutions to complex issues?
But let's ask the senator, though, but isn't the national trend, though, to start school earlier, and the national trend as far as this promotion of early education?
Well, early education's fine. It's a good starting point, and I don't think there's anyone here that doesn't want the absolute best for kids, but only 15 states mandate that a child is forced to go to school at 5 years of age. And that's where the problem is. I have a niece who, of 3 daughters, one of them was a little bit more behind than the other 2, and the parents made the call to hold her back for a year. She's well-adjusted, phenomenal student, but they knew this child needed a little extra time. What this law does is say to that parent, no, you don't have control over your children. We know better what your child needs, and it's wrong.
Well, look here, why don't you answer that? Isn't the parents, I mean, they're there all the time. Don't they have the better idea of if a 5-year-old is ready or not?
Parents know their children best, and so we find that the children that attend school earlier, they fare better. We know that from data, and so there's no need to play around and act as if we don't know what children need. We know exactly what children need, lower class sizes, and we need to be in school as early as possible. If you look at some of the Caribbean islands, their children are in school at 3, but it behooves us as the professionals and the educators at the table to then develop curriculum that is not only age appropriate, but we're looking at developmentally appropriate as well.
But parents are the first teacher that child has.
Right.
And then that child and parent has to cooperate and will cooperate collaboratively with the teacher. And now you have a good progressive situation for those kids to be able to excel. We're falling behind, Charlie, and we need to make sure that we are preparing our kids every single way we can.
But is the big argument, Dr. Weber, that it's a government-mandated proposal that Representative Sowerby is proposing?
I think the argument I have is it's just, with all due respect, it's intellectually lazy. If you look at nations in the world that are doing well, if you look at places like Finland, you look at Sweden, where they start their kids is actually later with much more of a play-based curriculum. Our curriculum, Charlie, is incredibly rigorous. I taught kindergarten last week for half a day, and what I saw our kids interacting with and needing to do was quite difficult. And some kids are ready, some kids might not be, but what I would say is we need to invest in early childhood education, young 5s, so parents don't have to send their kid to kindergarten but have an option for it. The argument here is not, is early education good or bad? There's no doubt that providing experiences.
You have developmental kindergarten for those 5-year-olds that may not be ready, and the parents that choice.
In every district?
You can get that going, and there are choices in many school districts for that. So if you have that challenged 5-year-old, there is another alternative. But we've got to be able to prepare those kids, especially with this 3rd grade reading requirement, which hits next year.
In the third grade reading legislation,
that is a tremendous burden on the family and the child. If they fail that 3rd grade reading requirement, they're held back. This prepares that child better.
If I could have a moment. The 3rd grade reading legislation is an absolute travesty. To hold kids back because they can't developmentally read it in 3rd grade is an absolute joke. If this legislation is meant to counter bad legislation, then to me that's an issue.
But it's the law, though. You're stuck with it, though.
It's the law.
Let me ask this, though. What would be the better fix? If Michigan is falling behind, we have to do something. We can't just say, well, only 15 states have done it. Is it easier to try to find a way to provide equal education to kids, or to start them earlier so they have maybe a better shot at meeting this mandate that you say is unfair from the beginning?
It's time out for being regressive and punitive in terms of legislation. We have to be progressive. We're tired of coming in last. Michigan is coming in last, and we know that that is not the case. That is not what our students can really do. And so we need to, again, provide those equitable opportunities for education as early as possible.
And you have to address
teachers everywhere. I bet teachers everywhere are ready for this. As I drove here today, teachers are asking, is this starting in September? People are excited about this legislation.
And the teachers I talked to said, why can't we address the fact that we have waivers for 4-year-old kids to be in a kindergarten classroom in a full day with a curriculum like that? Every student deserves the opportunity to learn.
If a 4-year-old is ready, would that be okay?
What about the families where English is a second language? We have to prepare those families and children as well. Mandatory kindergarten can give them that opportunity to go into 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade and meet those needs.
But does this overwhelm the class and the teacher if you have 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds?
They already are.
So 42% of the kids that we represent, or that I represent in my district, are English as a second language to them.
All right.
Yeah, this is one size fits all.
Let's hold this thought over here. Don't forget, share your thoughts with us using the hashtag #LetItRip on Facebook and Twitter. You may very well see your comments on the air at the end of the show. We're going to take a break. When we come back, though, a lot more on Let It Rip.